Doing a fantastic job. I think we all agree. Is Marco. You're all over the place, right? I watched you last night in 3 different locations. So tell us about Iran.
Well, first of all, the bottom line is Iran's never going to have a nuclear weapon. And if recent events have done anything, is just remind us once again that they are the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. And they can never have a nuclear weapon. Now, the president's preference, Mr. President, your preference has told us repeatedly, is always to negotiate these things and to figure out if you can have agreements. Diplomacy is always the first option. And we continue to work on that through your envoys, Mr. Woodcock and Kushner and others, the vice president, who've been very involved. And if there's an agreement to be made, we want that to be made. I think there's been some progress and some interest, and we'll see over the next few hours and days whether progress could be made. I just want to remind everybody, Mr. President, you know this well, you have other options available to you if that doesn't work. But the bottom line is that we prefer the negotiated diplomatic route, and we're going to give it every chance to succeed. I know you're giving it every chance to succeed, Mr. President, but here's the bottom line, because I keep getting asked, what is this all about? It's very simple. Iran and these people in charge of Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, and they will never have a nuclear weapon, and they most certainly will not have one as long as you're President of the United States. On that point, it's very clear. Just 2 quick things I want to touch upon. One, you touched upon the border and security. Part of securing our border is dealing with the people that are in this country unlawfully, many of whom do not want to go back to the country that they originally came from for a variety of reasons. Either we can't send them there or some judge ties us up. And one of the key things we have achieved is now 20 countries have signed third country national agreements, meaning these are safe countries where individuals who refuse to go back to their country of origin can be sent to that country instead. We've gotten 20 countries now around the world who have signed agreements that allow us to deport people to those places. What often happens when you go to the person who's here unlawfully and say, we're going to send you to this third country, is all of a sudden they decide they'd rather go back to their home country instead. So it gives the ability to enforce our laws, and we work very closely with the Department of Homeland Security on that front. Something else that I know is concerning people, because it's on the news, is Ebola. Our number one obligation, we're involved in foreign policy, but even our foreign policy, the number one priority of our foreign policy is to protect the American people. We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States. And so the State Department and other agencies represented here, the Centers for Disease Control, HHS, others, are working very, very hard to contain this crisis to the countries where it's currently located, particularly the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And so we've surged assistance to make sure that is being contained there. And obviously, multiple agencies involved here are also very involved in tracking people, just to make sure that nobody comes into this country that has Ebola and creates a problem for us. And we feel like we've got good efforts in place to do that, and Americans should feel assured that the President and his administration is doing everything we can to protect them on that front. My last point, you said I was all over the place. One of the places I stopped in last night was to initial the Trump Route for Prosperity in Armenia. This is a key linchpin of the peace deal that you were able to achieve between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And in addition to that, we also signed a critical minerals MOU with them and a strategic engagement one as well. So just a reminder of another war you helped to settle, Mr. President. But from that now we are seeing the emergence of a great new relationship with Armenia that really had grown stagnant for a very long period of time. So we're doing well on that front as well. Thank you.
And could I just ask you, Cuba?
This speech is mainly about power, security, foreign policy, and how the administration wants Americans to see the country under its leadership. The speakers are trying to project the image of a strong government that is protecting the United States from threats abroad and problems at home. There are several major topics in the speech, including Iran, immigration, Ebola, Venezuela, Cuba, international diplomacy, and energy production. The first and most important topic is Iran. The speaker repeatedly says that Iran must never obtain a nuclear weapon. That idea is repeated many times because it is meant to send a strong message both to Americans and to the international community. The administration views Iran as dangerous because they accuse it of supporting terrorism around the world. At the same time, the speaker explains that diplomacy is still the preferred option. In other words, they would rather negotiate and reach an agreement peacefully than go to war. However, they also hint that military action remains possible if negotiations fail. This combination of diplomacy and threat is common in international politics. Leaders often try to appear calm and reasonable while also showing strength. Another important part of the speech focuses on immigration and border security. The speaker explains that the government has made agreements with about 20 countries that can receive migrants who are in the United States illegally and cannot easily be sent back to their home countries. According to the speaker, this gives the government more power to enforce immigration laws. The message here is directed toward Americans who are worried about illegal immigration. The administration wants to appear tough on border issues and determined to maintain control of who enters and stays in the country. The speech also discusses Ebola. The speaker says the government is doing everything possible to prevent Ebola cases from entering the United States, especially from Democratic Republic of the Congo. This section is designed to reassure Americans that public health agencies are actively protecting the population. Fear of disease outbreaks can quickly create panic, so governments often speak strongly about containment and preparedness. Then the speech moves into foreign diplomacy, especially involving Armenia and Azerbaijan. The speaker praises the administration for helping improve relations between those countries and encouraging peace. This is meant to show that the administration is not only focused on conflict, but can also create diplomatic success stories. By mentioning trade agreements and strategic partnerships, they are presenting the United States as an influential global power capable of shaping international relations. The section about Venezuela is especially focused on oil and economic management. The speaker claims that Venezuelan oil revenues are now being handled more transparently and professionally, with money monitored in the United States instead of being stolen through corruption. The goal here is to portray American involvement as positive and stabilizing. Venezuela has experienced years of economic crisis and political instability, so the administration wants to argue that its policies are helping the Venezuelan people. The tone becomes much more aggressive when the speech turns to Cuba. The speaker openly attacks communism and criticizes the Cuban leadership as incompetent. This reflects a long history of tension between the United States and Cuba. Politically, anti-communist language is often used to appeal to certain groups of voters, especially older Cuban-American communities who strongly oppose the Cuban government. The statement is emotional and ideological, not just economic or diplomatic. One of the strongest political messages in the speech involves oil production and energy independence. The speaker claims the United States is producing more oil than Russia and Saudi Arabia combined. Whether the exact numbers are fully accurate or not, the purpose of the statement is clear: to show America as economically dominant and independent from foreign energy supplies. Energy production is often connected to national pride and economic strength in political speeches. Overall, the speech uses a very strategic political style. It mixes fear, patriotism, strength, and reassurance. The administration wants people to believe that it is controlling dangerous threats, strengthening the economy, protecting borders, and increasing American influence around the world. At the same time, the speech carefully balances diplomacy with toughness. They say they want peace and negotiation, but they also constantly remind listeners that military or stronger actions remain possible. My opinion is that the speech is effective politically because it speaks directly to emotions. It makes supporters feel that the government is strong and active. However, some parts sound exaggerated or highly ideological, especially the comments about communism, oil dominance, and global influence. Political speeches often simplify complex international situations into clear good versus bad narratives, because that is easier for audiences to understand and support. In the end, the central message of the speech is simple. The administration wants Americans to believe that the country is safer, stronger, more respected, and more powerful under its leadership.